Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast Live. This is an unusual day and time for me to go live, but as you all know, I tend to do that sometimes, and I'll just go live and give my thoughts on something, and then I'll roll out. Just an opportunity to, I guess, make more new friends here in the podcast space, and get my thoughts out there, and just get more content out for you guys. So what I'll do here, I'll wait a couple minutes and see if we get any pickup in the chat. But in the meantime, I will give my spiel. You know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait. So as I said, normally we do the lives generally Sunday nights to kind of wrap up the weekend of NFL football. Also Wednesday nights where we do our pick'ems and other topics, and Saturday nights as well. And, as I said, there will be other times that, we go live during the week. But so definitely wanted to take a few minutes here, get on today, give you my thoughts on some things that I've been thinking about, obviously in the world of the NFL, the WNBA, and then the NBA. Just 3 topics. We'll see how long this goes. Don't plan on talking all day on this. Got some stuff to do in a little bit. So, definitely wanted to, like I said, get my thoughts on that. So if you're here in the chat, make sure you hit that like and subscribe, as I mentioned, and let me know who you are, where you're coming in from. And then, like I said, we'll give it a couple more minutes, see what we get in terms of engagement in the chat, and then we'll go ahead. If it doesn't pick up, then we'll just go ahead anyway, and we'll make it an intimate little gathering here. But definitely wanted to give you my thoughts on this stuff. So, yep, we'll do that. All right. Well, you know what? Let's just go ahead and we'll get started, and we'll see who comes in along the way. All right. So we're gonna start out with the NFL, and obviously we're on the home stretch of the NFL season now, looking towards teams getting set, and getting prepared, and trying to lock up seeding in terms of the NFL playoffs, which will be coming up in about a month here. I think we got 4 or 5 games left, 4 games left. So yeah, 4 games, no, 3 games left. So we got about a month left. And so we are waiting to see kind of how it's all going to play out. And it looks like it's going to be pretty interesting. I think we had an idea who the best teams were in the NFC and in the AFC, but now things are starting to get a little iffy, right? Kansas City, I believe, what are they, 13-1 now, but all-world quarterback Pat Mahomes, he appears to have an ankle sprain, and we'll see how long it's going to be, if he doesn't play this weekend or what. And even at 13-1, yeah, they've been finding ways to win, because that's what great teams do, but they haven't at all looked dominant. They've been winning a lot of games via defense. They won 1 game with a block kick at the end, but they have not looked anything like the Kansas City that we've known in the past. You saw the The Buffalo Bills, I think they're 10-3 now. They're playing really good football right now. So, they're looking to hopefully try and catch Kansas City and see if they can't get that number one overall seed and make everything come through Buffalo. You have, what's this, the 10-4 Pittsburgh Steelers right now. They're playing good ball, but they're coming off a loss, and they have a monster showdown in Baltimore this weekend on Saturday. So that, I think, is going to go a long way to determining AFC seeding. So a lot going on in the AFC. Then you've got in the NFC, you've got the 12-2 Detroit Lions, who for a long time looked like the best team on that side in the NFC. And the problem here, though, is I think the Lions have like 18 guys on injured reserve. And as good as they are, it's almost impossible to conceive of anyone being able to survive that type of attrition, that type of damage done to your roster and your team by injuries. So you're wondering how that's going to play out. You got the Philadelphia Eagles, who are just kind of rolling along, and they have one of the best defenses in the league. They have a very good offense. Saquon Barkley, probably in the running for Offensive Player of the Year, might not get the MVP because he looks like he got knocked off of position to try and break Eric Dickerson's all-time single-season rushing record. May still get it, but he kind of looked like he got knocked off of that with, I think he only had about 67 rushing yards on Sunday. And so the Eagles now look like they could be the class of the NFC, but now you're wondering, okay, Tampa Bay is surging. And if they get a home game and for whatever reason the Eagles have to go there, can they deal with that? The way Baker Mayfield is playing, and that's the subject of our first topic here, they possibly could beat anybody. This is a very good football team. They just went out to L.A. This past weekend, and they took the Chargers, number one scoring defense in the league. Literally, they took them behind the woodshed, beat them 40-17. They dropped the 40 burger on them. Very impressive. Baker Mayfield, I think, about 288 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. So really, really good game for him. And the reason I was thinking about Baker Mayfield, just kind of watching every weekend. If you watch this show, like when you hear Transformer and I, and we're making our pick'ems and whatnot, I'm a big fan of Baker Mayfield. And, one of the things I like to say, just, in jest, but something I heard when he was in college, we call him Baker, touchdown maker. And this is a guy that he's been through some ups and downs in his career, right? I think he came in second in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting as a rookie. While he was in Cleveland, he was able to help Cleveland win their first playoff game in 26 years. And I want to say in that game, they put like 48 points on the Steelers. So a Steelers, team that's known for defense. So really outstanding team there. And they did their thing. So you're looking at it and you're saying, well, Baker, he's got a lot of ability, but I think in his third season, he played most of the way with an injured shoulder. So the team didn't play particularly well, as they probably wouldn't when their starting quarterback has an injured shoulder, right? But he tried to tough it out and go all the way through. And then we find out that Cleveland has an opportunity to grab Deshaun Watson, which, as we now see, probably was not the best move. And they let Baker know that they were going to get Deshaun Watson. Baker requests a trade. He gets traded to Carolina, gets benched there, has a terrible run. Matt Stafford gets injured in Los Angeles with the Rams. Baker goes out there, and after only 2 days in the building, he starts, I think, on Thursday Night Football, and he wins an amazing game against the Raiders with a pretty much last-second touchdown pass, which was freaking incredible. And he kind of starts to feel his way again, and then after that, he gets released, and he ends up in Tampa, where he's been for the last couple of years, and he's had 2 really great seasons there. So now you look at Baker, and last year in Tampa, he played all 17 games and 9-8. They won the division. They won a playoff game. So that's 2 playoff wins for Baker. Now, if you're counting 4,000 passing yards, so that was the high of his career. 28 passing touchdowns. That was also the high of his career. Only 10 interceptions. Now, you never want double-digit interceptions, but Baker, he's going to give you some of those, right? Because he's definitely a gunslinger, and he's a big game, big throw type of player. Now, is that saying he's elite or he's a top 5, top 8 quarterback, maybe not even top 10, but Baker's really good. And the way he played last year, again, helping them to get the division championship and helping them to win a playoff game in the first round. And they were right there with an opportunity to win a playoff game in the second round at Detroit. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that he threw an interception on that final drive trying to make something happen. So he literally gave the game away. I get that, but they're not in that position if it's not for Baker. So A really good year last year, career year. And I think they gave him a 3-year extension for about $100 million roughly. So, he was compensated, not the huge money we see some of these quarterbacks getting, but compensated well. And now he's back. And he has, looks like they may end up, if they finish strong, with a better record this year. They're currently, they be in Tampa Bay, they're currently 8-6. He's 71% completions on the year. He looks like he's on the path for another career year. Right now, he's got 3,617 passing yards. He will probably end up breaking his own mark from last year, probably get up around 41, 42, 100 passing yards. He's got 32 touchdowns, another career high. So Baker is playing extremely well. And the reason I thought this was so interesting, not just because I'm personally a fan of the way the guy plays, but if you remember, he was ripped a lot in the mainstream sports media coming out of college. And one of the main people that was, really going in on him was Colin Cowherd. And a big part of that was, let's be honest here, Baker had some judgment issues in college, right? He was out there drinking and acting up. And there was one situation where he was drinking and he was running from the police and they got caught on video. And I think the cops actually ran him down, which is not good in terms of being an NFL player, right? Getting run down by some local cops. But again, he was drunk. So, and I'm not advocating for that at all. Anyone who knows me knows I don't drink at all. So I'm not advocating for the being drunk. I referenced the being drunk in terms of him getting run down by cops as, an NFL caliber athlete. So I say all that to say, he had that. He had the issue with planting the flag at Ohio State, which didn't go so well. He had the issue, I think it was either at Kansas or Kansas State, where, he was getting into some trash talk, et cetera. And he grabbed his genitals and made a kind of obscene gesture with that, like sometimes young men will do. Again, not advocating it, but it's what he did. And so Colin Cowherd really was a guy who ripped him publicly. Basically, he thought he was immature. He thought he wasn't good enough. He compared him to Johnny Manziel coming out of college, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I get to some extent the comparison to Johnny Manziel, right? Two shorter white quarterbacks who kind of moved around a lot in college, played in very dynamic offensive passing systems, won Heisman trophies. So I think Cowherd was looking at all those similarities. And then, of course, you see some of the quote unquote immaturity, some of the poor decision making, et cetera. But everybody who's been around Baker, like his teammates, et cetera, they speak well of him. They love him. They say he's a leader. But Cowherd was he always talks about he wants his quarterbacks to be quarterbackial. He wants his quarterbacks to be buttoned up. That's the type of guy he is. And to some extent, I get that, right? This is the leader of your franchise. This is the guy who has to, in terms of among the players, he's the main guy generally that has to go stand at the podium and answer questions. And he's reflective of your entire program, your franchise. So you kind of want a certain guy up there. And also, one of the things Cowherd talked about when Baker was in Cleveland was him starting fires at the podium, saying things that didn't go over well. And I guess at the end of the day, some people kind of grow into their fit and their level of maturity at different points in their life than others. And so now you see Baker and it looks totally different. It seems like everything's come together for him. He's loving playing football. He's having a ton of success. Woodage 84, what's going on, man? What's good? Good to see you. Yeah, absolutely. Look at the Browns since getting rid of Baker. They've been terrible. Sometimes the grass on the other side is not always greener, right? We see this in multiple aspects of life, and that's why that saying exists. Because you think, man, I'm here and I got this, but I'm gonna go over there and get that, and that's gonna be so much better. But it doesn't always play out that way, right? Now, we can be honest, Deshaun Watson, prior to him sitting out a year to try and force the trade out of Cleveland, as well as his personal issues, which we're not going to get into, he was an outstanding quarterback. He was better than Baker, right? He was more athletic, had better stats, better production, et cetera, et cetera. But look who's got the advantage now. And again, we are seeing what Baker is doing, and it's impressive. So I wanted to play some sound on some different people in terms of what they had to say about Baker Mayfield and how he's playing now and what he's doing. I really didn't feel like going through the Colin Cowherd stuff because there was so much negative stuff from early in Baker's career, about 6 years ago. You can look all that up on YouTube if you want, where he was really, like I said, he was just going hard on the guy. Pause. And there wasn't, in my estimation, a whole lot of need for that, other than saying, clearly he made some poor decisions in college. We will see if he goes high and if he's the face of a franchise, if this is a guy that can make better decisions and be a leader and put that stuff behind him and get his maturity in check. So, I mean, I get it. If you're going to draft a guy high and maybe even number 1 overall and say, this is going to be the face of my franchise, there's certain things I expect. But I think Kyle Hurd was really, really tough on him. But if you notice lately, probably from last year up until now, he's really come around on Baker. He's apologized. He admitted he was wrong, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, it was interesting. Let's see what we got. Tampa has the same team that won the Super Bowl a few years ago. Just need a solid QB at the very least for them to get over the top. Yeah, they have relatively the same roster. I think it may take a little more than a solid QB, but I think Baker can be that. I think the only key is for him not to make a mistake in the big moment, right? We saw that they had an opportunity to beat Detroit last year at the end of that game. And so he gets the ball back, I think probably around his own 15, 20, somewhere in there. And he's trying to drive and he throws that pick to end the game. So, the key is going to be not making mistakes. But we've seen, man, when this guy's on his game, he can do it. So let's hear some comments from football analyst Brian McFadden regarding Baker Mayfield and hear what he has to say.
Baker Mayfield, once again, I mean, Baker plays with no heart in terms of conscience. He just goes about his business. And the thing about Baker, he can have a bad play. It never happened for him mentally because he goes and he progresses like everything is positive. Once again, 22 of 27, only 5 incompletions, almost 300 yards, 288 to be exact, 4 touchdowns. Baker Mayfield has been balling. I know you would never put his name in the MVP conversation, but when it comes to doing more with less, in terms of at one point in this season, he was without his top 2 pass catchers. Heck, Chris Godwin will not return. Mike Evans came back. Didn't miss a beat. He was able to weather the storm without his high-level pass catchers, kept his team afloat. And right now, they're thriving like no other team in the NFC. When you look at some teams that are not the household names in the NFC, when you talk about the Detroit Lions of the world, the Philadelphia Eagles of the world, there are some teams that's right on the outside looking in that you have to monitor in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I put them in the same neighborhood as the Rams. Those 2 teams you do not want to see in the playoffs, especially when you look at the confidence that they're playing with and how well their quarterbacks are playing on either side.
We've seen them offer walking papers to better teams in the playoffs before. I'm not sure you want to see this Tampa team, when it's all said and done, they inch ever closer to a division title there. Mac, you allude to the heart of Baker Mayfield. I know what you're saying in terms of his almost malaise that he goes into. There's such a competitor spirit within him that he flips that switch and becomes a different beast. He's a foxhole guy. Like, he's the guy you want in the foxhole next to you. What is the value in that? Sort of the intangible. We could talk about the numbers, but how much is it worth to have a guy like Baker Mayfield believing through the attrition?
It means a lot because he's a fighter that never quits. But he plays the most important position on your team, which is the quarterback. And you can tell the entire team rally around Baker. Look at his fight. When he's in the pocket, it's collapsing. He's never going down. He's trying to fight and claw for every positive yard. When he breaks the pocket, he's looking to make something happen with his arm or with his legs. I just love his nature, the nature that he loves in playing football. Yeah. You can tell Baker Mayfield loves football because he attacks the game like his last play. Every down.
So you love what you're hearing there from Brian McFadden in regards to Baker and him attacking every play like it's his last. And those are the type of things that you love to hear. You don't necessarily always hear that about quarterbacks. A lot of times you will hear it said about quarterbacks, just live to play another down, right? Don't do something stupid and don't turn the ball over. But sometimes you need that fiery guy that's always trying to do a little something extra within reason, right? Not a little something extra and then end up turning the ball over. But you love to hear that about Baker. So one of the things I thought was interesting, though, was he said, you'll never hear Baker in the MVP conversation. So my question becomes, like, why not? For instance, he could conceivably finish, not necessarily this season because of what Josh Allen is doing, what Saquon Barkley is doing, what Lamar Jackson is doing, but any other year, right? You're talking about 71% completions, probably about 4,300 passing yards, probably about 40 touchdowns, right? And a good record, maybe winning the division. Why can't you be in the MVP discussion. Why is that? Now, again, not this year because those guys are absolute freaks, but those are the type of numbers that get you in that discussion right now. Could he clean up some of the interceptions? Yes, this year so far he's already got 14 picks. So hopefully he doesn't end up around 20. Possible though. But the question there again is why couldn't he be in the MVP discussion? I think that a lot of times is the problem with the MVP discussion, and I lament this a lot in basketball and the NBA, is that there's no clear criteria set for this thing, much like the Heisman Trophy. Why? Because I guess they want it to be subjective. They want people to be talking about it. They want people to be debating about it. They want people to be discussing it after this stuff comes out. And so my question would be, when it comes to the MVP, if there are certain criteria in place, well, you have to reach at least this threshold of passing yards and this threshold of passing touchdowns and this threshold of team wins and blah, blah, blah. Now, that's not to say that certain other conditions won't be taken into consideration, right? You look at a guy like Baker this year, he loses Godwin for a few games, and now he's got Godwin, and Godwin has Godwin, of course. Not Godwin, I'm sorry. Mike Evans was looking like he might not receive for 1,000 yards for the first time in his career, but he's probably going to get it now. I think he needs about 84 yards a game for the next 3 games in order to get that and continue to cement his Hall of Fame case. He'll be there. He's never not had 1,000 yards receiving in his entire career. So he missed some time. Chris Godwin is done for the year. He missed time. You got your next receiver, Jalen McMillan out of Washington. He was up there with that nasty triumvirate of Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, and Rome Odunze with Michael Penix Jr. last year that went all the way to the college football playoff national championship game. But so, yeah, Baker's got Jalen McMillan, who is a rookie, but he has managed to, in the absence of Chris Godwin, start to really establish a rapport with him. And McMillan has started to become a solid contributor during that time. And so he's been doing a lot. So I don't see why it is you would say he's never going to be in your MVP conversation. If he's healthy and he's playing like this, I don't understand why he couldn't be. Now, is he going to win it over a Lamar Jackson who is doing things we've never seen before? No. Is he going to win it over a Josh Allen who's doing things we've never seen before? No. But to say that he'll never be in your discussion, nah, I don't really like that. I don't think that made a whole lot of sense to me at all. But let's go ahead and listen to Rich Eisen, formerly of NFL Network. I don't know who he's with now. He may still be with them, but Rich Eisen, and he's got some commentary to make on Baker as well.
Very few people can succeed being the guy after the guy. I mean, one of the only few people is the guy after the guy I've seen succeed. For instance, Drew Carey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Good one. Or a Packers quarterback.
Oh, that's another one. Don't want to be that. Rodgers and Love have seemingly succeed the guy after the guy.
They follow Don Mikowski like greatly.
Andrew Luck was pretty good.
How about how about following Tom Brady in Tampa, Florida? Want to be that guy after the guy? Certainly, if it's just like, oh, well, you know what? Tom's leaving. We'll give Baker a shot. Well, Baker Mayfield, everybody, look at what Baker Mayfield is doing. Certainly, when Mike Evans went down with a hamstring injury after Chris Godwin went down for the season, good luck, Buccaneers. Well, look at him now. Baker Mayfield, in his first season after Brady got the team to the playoffs, and won a playoff game, bounced the Eagles, put a scare in the Lions, followed that up by getting pizzade, and all he's done is has this team, after being swept by the Falcons, in first place, no matter what the Falcons do tonight with 3 games to go, and has set a new career high for passing touchdowns in a season, with 4 more yesterday on the Chargers' top scoring defense, giving up only 15.6 points per game. Baker had 4 more yesterday. Missed on only 5 passes, 5 incompletions, 4 touchdowns. Hey, now. He is now has multiple games of 80% completion percentage or better with 4 passing touchdowns in a season. Multiple games. The other quarterbacks in the history of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who have done that are, let me get the list, nobody. He's the first.
That's impressive, right? Especially being that Tampa Bay had Steve Young, Hall of Famer, Doug Williams, Super Bowl champion, of course, Tom Brady, the greatest of all time ever at the position. So to say that you're Baker Mayfield and you're doing things that nobody has done before in the history of your franchise, that's pretty impressive. And he's doing it not necessarily on a bad team, right? He's doing it on a team that, as we mentioned, is in position now to win the division. Now, if you remember when we did our preseason division picks, I picked Tampa Bay to win this division, and I was kind of worried about it early in the season after they lost twice to Atlanta. But since Atlanta has kind of imploded, I guess that's the word we could use, since they've imploded, Tampa Bay is right back in position and looking like they're going to go ahead and finish this thing out and win the division. So I didn't think they were going to be able to survive those injuries to their offensive weapons, man, but credit Coach Todd Bowles, credit offensive coordinator, I think it's Liam Cohen, credit Baker Mayfield, credit Mike Evans for working his way back, credit the rookie running back, Bucky Irving. So everybody is really doing everything they can do to contribute and have a great season and to survive all those injuries. But at the end of the day, you can't do it without the quarterback, man. And again, Baker he's just having a tremendous season, man. And honestly, it's good to see based on the fact that you heard so much negativity about him and around him just a couple of years ago, whether it was about all the progressive commercials, which they were actually pretty funny. I really enjoyed those. The commercials where he lived in the stadium in Cleveland, him and his wife. I thought those were pretty funny. But a lot of people said, he was doing the commercials too early. He wasn't focusing on football, so on and so forth, which I didn't necessarily agree with, right? Because, again, I think in his time in Cleveland, he had like 4 head coaches in 4 years, which is absurd, right? He had Hugh Jackson, Greg Williams, Freddie Kitchens, and Kevin Stefanski. Like, I don't know what rookie quarterback is going to have success under those conditions, but it is what it is. Anyway, he seems to have found the place where he's comfortable, found the place where he's happy, found the place where he's having success. And so, we will see going forward what Baker is able to do. What do we got here? Black Dynamite, what up, what up? In his early days, Baker kind of had the Favre gunslinger mentality, but now he definitely calmed down, played smart. Yeah, but he still kind of has the gunslinger mentality. You look at some of the throws that Baker makes, and he definitely will. He'll rip some in there, man. And sometimes you're like, "Whoa, that was dangerous," but he clearly believes in his ability to make every throw. And you'll see here on some of these that he's gonna like that was a real close one down the seam. Wide receiver covered very, very tightly, but he drilled it in there. This was one of the games against Atlanta. He lost this game, obviously. But, he played extremely well. I think one of those games, Kirk Cousins threw for like 500. But as we see, Kirk Cousins, I don't know what happened to him. He fell off a cliff. He is not playing well. There's another one, right? He drilled it in. I probably would have gone over to that left corner by the pylon in the front of the end zone, but he drilled it in right there into double coverage. So Baker definitely has his gunslinger moments. He has above average arm talent. He definitely can. He's got some power when he lets it go. But it's just so interesting to me that Cowherd did a lot of comparisons early on to Johnny Manziel, and I think his comp as a player was Case Keenum when Baker came out, and I'm like, really? Nah, like that's disrespectful. But okay, cool. But now we see that it's something very different. We see he's come a long way, and we see even Cowherd has had to give him his props now. So yeah, that's that. Baker Mayfield is doing his thing. Baker, touchdown maker, is having the best season of his career, and we'll see what happens from here. Well, Black Dynamite, I don't even know if Kirk Cousins turned back into Kirk Cousins. I think it's more a function of Kirk Cousins. He came out hot, but he kind of showed like he was never the most mobile guy. And now he's showing like when the pressure comes to him, he can't evade it at all. I don't think he has a whole lot of confidence in that surgically repaired Achilles. And again, he wasn't mobile to start with. So he's kind of stuck, man. And I think Atlanta is screwed. And I think what they need to do is go ahead and bench him and get Michael Penix Jr. in there to give him some reps going into the offseason, make him the guy. And then next season we will see, because I think Penix is going to be a star in this league. I really do. And I think it's over for Kirk Cousins. I don't know if they're trying to attempt to get some good tape out there so they can trade him for something, because I think he got like $100 million. So, do you want $100 million sitting on your bench? But are you trying to win? Right. So it's a toss up. It's however you want to play that. Are you trying to win, or are you thinking about the money if you're Arthur Blank? I don't know. Okay. So That was Baker Mayfield. Next up, we're going to move to the next topic. We're going to move right along. Let's see. Let's go to, sorry about that. We will go to Caitlin Clark and the WNBA. I haven't talked about her or this topic for a while because obviously it's the off season, but well, it popped back up and there's some stuff going on, and I don't know, man. I think I'm a guy who really believes in a lot of cases making things as simple as I possibly can, right? And what do I mean by that? I mean trying to drill things down to its base, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, it doesn't, right? And when it comes to this Caitlin Clark business, there's a lot of things that don't make sense. Caitlin Clark, Rookie of the Year. I don't think it was unanimous. Maybe she missed a vote or two, but she was Rookie of the Year. She set a number of rookie records in the WNBA between her and Angel Reese. They set a number of viewership records in the women's NCAA tournament over the last couple of years, blah, blah, blah. If you go back on the channel, I've done some shows about that, really detailing all the things that they've done, right? So I'm not going to get into all the details, but here's the deal. Caitlin Clark comes into the league. At first, she's having difficulty because people want to see her play the way she played at Iowa. They want to see her just come across half court, pull up, bombing logo threes, and they want to see her getting, 9, 10 assists per game. They don't like when you point out the turnovers. They don't like when you point out that she doesn't play defense. They don't like when her fans don't like when anyone criticizes her or has anything to say that's simply factual, right? So we know prior to her coming into the league, when they were doing the simulcast on on ESPN during the women's NCAA tournament last year. And I think it was Diana Taurasi. And basically she said something along the lines, I don't have the exact quote, but she was basically like, reality is coming. And people thought she was taking a shot at Caitlin Clark. And she said, like, no, basically I'm saying now she's coming into the league, professional league. Nobody's got to go to class. These are grown women. This is how they feed themselves and their families. And it's going to be different in terms of the level of intensity, the level of physicality, the level of play, and she's going to have to adjust to that, as just about anyone has to in terms of going from college to going to the professionals, whether it's being a college football star, going to the NFL, being a college basketball star, going to the NBA. Like, that's just kind of how it works, right? Because the professional ranks are the best of the best of the best, right? What is it? Less than 1% of all people who play a high school sport are going to go professional. And so what does that mean? That means that each successive level filters out the people who aren't good enough. So if you get to that level, the professional level, all you are left with are the best of the best. And so I don't understand for the life of me why people took that as Diana Taurasi taking a shot at her. I think all it was, man, I think people look for controversy, honestly. When you do this content creation thing, you see it. People are simply looking for controversy constantly. And sometimes you write it as a creator, and sometimes it's just annoying because it's not necessary and it's disingenuous, right? So for myself, I'm kind of stuck in the middle in terms of being a creator and being someone who graduated from journalism school and has worked as a sports journalist, right? So for me, it's a little, I got to play the line between, the opinion space and giving my opinions, but trying to make sure that said opinions are based and backed up with fact that can be verified, et cetera, et cetera. And so this whole Caitlin Clark thing to me is crazy, right? Because now you get into, she enters the league and she's having a lot of trouble initially, and it takes her longer than her fan base would like in order for her to settle into the game. We see, so there's two things here, right? We see her having difficulty settling into the speed, the size and physicality of the WNBA game right away. So that's a fact. She had a lot of trouble. I believe led the league in turnovers, probably set the record for most turnovers in a season, if I'm not mistaken. But also led the league in assists, set some records there. Led rookies in scoring. I think set some records there. Really, really had a great season. And one of the biggest things here, though, is that what came along with her was a gigantic fan base, many of whom weren't necessarily women's basketball fans, but they were Caitlin Clark fans, right? So they followed her, and we saw the results. We saw the results in terms of a spike in viewership for the WNBA, the likes of which we probably hadn't seen in 20 plus years, and realistically, in some cases, had never seen. We saw a spike in ticket sales and merchandise and all of that, right? Just a huge spike. And I'm not going to say that it was solely her that was responsible. I think her and Angel Reese together It was kind of a perfect confluence of events, right? Coming off of their 2 years in a row battles in the NCAA tournament. I think once in the Elite Eight, once in the championship game. So that helps as well. So you have all these storylines coming together, and she comes to the league and brings a lot of attention and a lot of eyes with her and Angel Reese, in terms of the WNBA draft, in terms of the first game, in terms of televised Fever games, in terms of televised Fever playoff games, merchandise sales, all-star game, everything, right? And if we're real, and I did a show on this before, or a segment on another show about this, Caitlin Clark was one of the main catalysts of the explosion of interest in the WNBA. Now, if I'm honest, and I got to be honest here, it's not the explosion has helped the WNBA, right? Because there are some people who say, I'm going to go to see Caitlin. I'm going to watch to see Caitlin. Oh, wait a minute. This player over here is good. You know, Nafisa Collier, she's real good. Oh, Asia Wilson, damn beast, right? Brittany Griner, so on and so forth, right? Arike Agubanwale, you know, a lot of really good, outstanding players in the WNBA who have been there kind of, I don't want to use the term toiling in relative obscurity, but unfortunately that's kind of been what they've been doing for a long time. And so they haven't necessarily been getting the credit nor the attention they deserve for their hard work, their skill level, their dedication to their craft, and their love of the game, right? Okay, cool. So Caitlin Clark goes there. She helps to bring a ton of attention, a ton of eyeballs. That is what that is. And now you start getting issues happening. You start getting a quote unquote, you get a racial component start getting pulled into this thing, because unfortunately there are a fair amount of Caitlin Clark fans. I'm not going to say all, but there are a fair amount of Caitlin Clark fans who have been, you know, spewing racist vitriol against many of the black players in the WNBA. And that just is what it is. I'm not saying all Caitlin Clark fans are racist, but it's out there. You can find it. You have, unfortunately, a lot of people in the mainstream sports media pushing the narratives that these angry black women in the WNBA hate Caitlin Clark and they're just jealous of her. No, they're not jealous. They're just not going to allow a rookie, no matter who, no matter what race, to walk into their league and think they're just going to take over, right? There's no rookie in anybody's league that people are going to allow to just walk in and take over. Now, you have some rookies that are so incredibly mercurial that they can do that. I want to say, I believe Candace Parker walked in and won MVP as a rookie. She was that great. I don't even think Maya Moore was able to do that. And that's my favorite female player of all time, by the way. But anyway, you have guys like, you know, a LeBron James who can walk into the NBA and be ready right away, a Shaquille O'Neal, a Michael Jordan, obviously, a Magic Johnson, a Larry Bird, but very few players in very few sports, CJ Stroud in the NFL, can just walk in and get busy out of the gate. And again, those veterans that have been there all those years, they're not going to just allow it. Now, if you're good enough that you can overcome their resistance, then that's cool, but they're not just going to allow it. So you had people in the mainstream sports media and even some in the independent space pushing the false narrative that, oh, these angry black women they're just jealous and they're just hating on her and they don't want to blah, blah, blah. And no, right? No, they're just competing. And they're not going to let you walk in and they're not going to just take it easy on you because you're the quote unquote golden child. Nah, you have to earn yours, rookie. You got to earn yours. And Caitlin Clark, to her credit, for the most part, I don't recollect her doing any crying or complaining publicly or anything like that. Now, do we know that she's the type that on the floor is going to whine and complain to refs, to the officials? Yeah, she does that. But most great players do that realistically, complain to the officials until they get to that point where they're going to get the quote unquote superstar calls, etc. But for the most part, I don't recollect ever hearing outside of the court Caitlin Clark ever complaining in media sessions or anything like that. She's just like, yo, they're going to hit me. I got to deal with it. I got to keep going. Now, some people may think that was a kind of slick, backhanded way of saying, hey, pay attention to the physicality I'm getting. Maybe it was. Maybe that was a smart move. But at the end of the day, that was what that was, right? But anyway, from a business standpoint, the attention, the money generated, the attention spike, the eyeballs, all of that have come to the WNBA, Caitlin Clark was a major catalyst towards that. Again, I'm not going to say she is the singular reason, but she was a major catalyst towards that. And it's really odd to me how so many people, whether they're in the media or whether they are players, whether they're fans or whatever, seem to have issues acknowledging that, right? For instance, I don't have the exact quote in front of me. I should have got it, but Asia Wilson made some commentary on how there's a racial component at play. And I guess she believes that, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I guess she believes that Caitlin Clark's race has played a role in the meteoric rise of the attention that she has received and that she has brought to the WNBA. My thing is this: whether or not that's true, and I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it isn't, but whether or not it's true, if I'm in the WNBA, what good does it do me to complain about that? What would be the better move is to take advantage of that. That's my thought, right? Just like I said when it came to Bronny in the G League. They may be coming to see you, but when they come to see you, they're going to see me, right? So let's just say Caitlin Clark has to guard me, or whoever it is she has to guard. We know that there's going to be tons of cameras on this game. We know it's probably going to be a nationally televised game. We know it's probably going to be a primetime game, what have you. And why? Because people want to see Caitlin Clark. She's a draw. Cool. So guess what? If I'm playing against Caitlin Clark, I'm not mad because all these cameras came. I'm using that as an example to try and go and destroy you, Caitlin Clark, right? I'm trying to give you 30 or whatever I can give you. I'm trying to cook you at every turn. I'm trying to make you foul out. I'm trying to destroy you, and I'm trying to lock you up if I have to guard you too. So I'm trying to do all these things. I'm taking advantage of the attention that you've brought. Okay, cool. You've brought this attention. I might even feel some kind of way saying like, damn, where was all this attention all these years prior where we were, again, toiling away in relative obscurity? It wasn't there. But guess what? It's here now. I'm going to take advantage of it. For instance, on the other episode that I did in regards to this particular topic and Caitlin Clark, one of the things I talked about was 1979, April 1979, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird played against each other, Michigan State, Indiana State, for the national championship in what is still today the most televised college basketball game of all time. Got you. So with that, we saw the what do you want to call it? We saw the birth of their legendary rivalry, which they then carried into the NBA. And of course, we know the story was perfect. Lakers, Celtics, black, white, Showtime, hard work and grit. And they met 5 times in the finals in the 1980s. Lakers took 3, Celtics took 2. There you go. 5 times. Yeah, I believe so. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is we saw that and it worked out perfectly. And I'm sure there were some guys who were in the league before those two came that felt some kind of way like, wait a minute, we've been over here, we've been balling all these years. We weren't getting this love. Now this rookie comes and this white boy comes, being Magic and Larry, and now they're getting all the attention. Well, guess what? Sometimes that's how life is. You need a catalyst to set something off and get it rolling. But instead of being angry about said catalyst, take advantage, because now the opportunity that you had to be seen that wasn't previously there, you have it, so you can get busy. For instance, Asia Wilson, who is without question the greatest player in the women's game today, and probably is en route, if she's not already, to being the greatest women's player of all time. She is an absolute monster, although maybe I'm sure Cheryl Miller might have something to say about that, because, man, I always wonder if she, quick side note, I digress, if she in her prime had a chance of playing the WNBA, what she would be doing. It would be destructive. But anyway, Asia Wilson is an absolute monster. And it's funny, on another episode, I think I compared her to a female David Robinson because she's left-handed. She can play the post. She defends at a high level, rebounds at a high level, blocks shots. She can run the break. She's got a handle. She's got a mid-range. She's got the low block all the way out to 3. She really reminds me game style wise as a David Robinson, a female version. So, and I don't want to, I hope that is not offensive to anyone. It's not about comparing her to a man. It's saying the way she plays and just comparing her to another all-time great player who she reminds me of. And so, yeah, I see that. But the point is, Asia Wilson is just an absolute monster, right? And so I'm saying, I guess she's now taking advantage of the fact that not only is there more attention on the league, more attention on her, it's also more opportunity for them to speak, quote unquote, their truth, which I put up the air quotes there because I'm a person that, if you know anything about me, I don't believe in the expression my truth, your truth, his, her truth, their truth. No. There is the truth. 1 + 1 is 2. It always will be. It can never be 3. So no matter what I think, my truth can't be 1 + 1 = 5 because it can't. The truth is gravity keeps us on the ground. That is the truth. There's no truth you can have that takes away from gravity. See what I'm saying? So like, my truth, your truth. No, there's the truth. Anyway, that's why I use the, the air quotes when I mention that. But the point is, this is an opportunity for her to, and maybe some other players in the league, to speak to their experiences prior to and I guess post the arrival of, this rookie class, which is obviously headlined by Caitlin Clark. So why am I bringing up all of this, right? I know I've been talking about Caitlin Clark for a minute. Why am I bringing up all of this? Because Time Magazine recently did their Person of the Year. I think that was Donald Trump, President-elect Donald Trump. And they did their Athlete of the Year, which is who? Caitlin Clark. So Caitlin Clark won Athlete of the Year, which I guess goes across all sports. Mostly, I would assume the domestic sports product that we have. I can't imagine that there would be too much voting on Athlete of the Year from international sports, because what are some of the biggest international sports in the world? Cricket, soccer, sports that are a lot less important in our American sporting landscape, right? So the point is, she made Athlete of the Year and was on the cover of Time Magazine, which I'm like, that's interesting. Like, clearly she's skilled. Clearly she's an exciting player. Clearly she did things that we haven't seen before. And so, all that is great, but I'm just like, well, what would make her Athlete of the Year? I guess it's a function of what she was able to do in between the lines and, all the records that she set as a rookie in her sport. And not only that, obviously, I think the bigger thing has to be, I think the bigger thing has to be not just that, but as I mentioned, the revenue, the jump in revenue, the business aspect of what she was able to do for the WNBA. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And it pissed off a lot of people that she ended up being, the Athlete of the Year for Time Magazine. And again, this is one of those things for me. I'm like, why? All this is doing is bringing more attention to your league, and as a result, more money, right? So WNBA players have been complaining for years. We need more money. We're not being properly compensated. Cool. I get it. You need more money. You're not being properly compensated. This is an opportunity for that money to come. But instead, you want to take that and you want to argue and complain about things that really aren't relevant to helping you achieve that goal of being better compensated and making more money. Maybe I just don't understand things, right? Give me 1 second. Yeah, maybe I just don't understand how things work, or maybe I'm not being respectful enough of people's feelings. But again, opportunity, you got to seize the opportunity when it's there, because this is a chance for you to be seen, and this is a chance for said compensation to improve, and it's on the way. We've already seen. I want to say that the NBA gave them $2 billion out of a new licensing deal. Now, that's small fries, but again, you're an organization that's never turned a profit in 28, 27 years of existence. So baby steps, people, baby steps. Here is Caitlin Clark's Time Magazine cover for Athlete of the Year. Now, again, should she have been that? She's clearly not the best player in her game, and I have no objection to saying that. Remember, I mentioned Asia Wilson, who may be the best women's player of all time, but clearly the best WNBA player now, best women's player in the world. Some people may, again, feel a way about this. So now we have that. And so this gets weird for me, because you have a situation where Caitlin Clark was interviewed, and I'm trying to figure out how to handle this properly, but she was interviewed and she made commentary to the effect of how basically she acknowledged that she has white privilege, and that we need to be paying more attention to these Black women that have, done so much to build a league, et cetera, et cetera. So here's my thing, right? Here's my thing. Is white privilege a real thing? Yes. I would be ignorant, disingenuous, as a black man in America to sit here and say white privilege is not a real thing. Does it affect every single thing? No, I don't think so. But here's where stuff starts getting funny, right? You have, let's say, Diana Taurasi. You have Breanna Stewart, both of who are clearly far superior college basketball players than Caitlin Clark. And I'm not going to really compare their pro careers because she's only been in the league one season, right? But both of those are going to end up in the Basketball Hall of Fame for what they have done, both as collegiate players as well as WNBA players. You got a Maya Moore, who again was a far superior collegiate player and thus far far superior WNBA player. There's a lot of them, right? Well, not Maya Moore. Let's leave her out because she's black. But the point is, I'm going to use the example of Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, what's her name, Breanna Stewart. Why did we never hear anything about white privilege in regards to those players who, again, were outstanding collegiate and professional women's basketball players? Wow, funny, they're all UConn. But anyway, the point is we didn't hear any complaints, any commentary about white privilege when it came to them. So why is it only in regards to Caitlin Clark? This is what I don't understand. And this is where it gets iffy for me, right? So she speaks to her white privilege and she says that, we need to, much like Paige Beckers did, I think at the ESPYs, I think it was the ESPYs, where she's saying like we need to continue to basically pay homage to the black women, on whose backs we have built the WNBA, so on and so forth. And again, all that's cool, but this is what I'll say. If I'm Caitlin Clark in this particular situation, I probably would have just kept quiet on that. I would have, because what's happening is this. You're probably going to alienate a good percentage of your fan base. There's going to be people who think that you shouldn't have said that. There's going to be people who don't agree with you. There's fans who are going to cancel you because they don't agree with that stance you're taking. Now, you may gain some fans on the other side of the aisle, but I think you're going to eliminate a good bunch. You really should have played neutral and let people see you however it is they see you, right? If it's that terrible segment of your fan base that's racist, etc., racist, homophobic, whatever you want to use, those people, if it's that section of your fan base, let them see you how they see you. If it's the section of your fan base that's more liberal, on the left leaning, let them see you how they see you. But you should not have, from a business standpoint and from a marketing standpoint, you shouldn't have tipped your hand by saying anything. Now, do I feel there was a bit of pressure on her to make those comments? Probably there was a little bit of pressure there. And if it was me, again, I would have taken the Michael Jordan route and kept it cool and not really said too much. I would have let that be. Now, if I was asked directly about that question, I like to think that I probably would have thought about it in advance and had a well-prepared yet neutral statement regarding that. Like, every athlete should be looking at a guy like Tom Brady and studying how he answers questions. The master of saying everything while saying nothing. That's what you need to be as a high-profile professional athlete. Why? Because you don't want to damage your own prospects by alienating possible members of the fan base, people who may have been willing to become a fan, people who already were, who will no longer be one. Like, you don't want to do that. You want to play the middle, because really, what does Caitlin Clark realistically have to gain by making those type of comments? I didn't see the benefit in it, and honestly, I don't even know that it was necessarily and honestly the truth, because again, like I mentioned, Taurasi, Sue Bird, Breanna Stewart, we never heard of Sabrina Ionescu. We never heard anything about white privilege when it comes to those players, and they're all better than her. We the key DJs. What's good? Good to see you. Now, this was an outstanding question. What about Ali, though? So here's the difference. Ali was he was who he was in a time of dynamic social unrest in this country. And as well, he believed that he had a legitimate religious conviction against what he was called upon to do, right? So a religious conviction, that's a different thing. You speak out on that. You stand on that. So I get your point. I think his stance was a little bit different. Caitlin Clark, again, I didn't see she had anything to gain from that, because think about it. She has never encouraged her fan base to go out there and be degenerate, be racist, be homophobic, whatever. She's never encouraged any of that, nor has she encouraged the other side of her fan base by, giving the impression that she's liberal. She has managed thus far, up until now, to do a very good job towing the line, being relatively quiet, and just saying only what needs to be said. I'm telling you, every athlete, every big time athlete needs to go to the Tom Brady school of saying everything while saying nothing. Right? That's my opinion on that. Now, here's the other thing. So, as we saw, Caitlin Clark on the cover of Time magazine, Athlete of the Year. Got it. And this now seemed to cause some more consternation. And this to me was, all right, I'm going to play it, then I'm going to come back and talk about it. So I think her name is Stephanie Johnson. I think she's the owner of the Mystics. Let me look that up real quick. Of the Washington Mystics. I should have written that down before I sat here to talk to you guys. But she's a minority owner. Let's see. I'm looking for her name. Give me 1 second. I think it's Stephanie Johnson. Let's see. Sheila Johnson. Thank you. Yes, Sheila Johnson. So she's a part owner of the Washington Mystics. And so she had some interesting comments in regards to Caitlin Clark's Time magazine cover. I guess she didn't like it, and we will come back and discuss that. But let's hear what she had to say about it.
And this year, something clicked with the WNBA, and it's because of the draft of the players that came in.
All right, first of all, I'm going to interrupt her right away. This year, something clicked with the WNBA. That's disingenuous. And again, when I say this, it is no slight at the players who have been putting in work, dedication, mastering their craft, putting their time in, not being properly compensated. Well, being properly compensated based on what the league was generating, which has never been a profit in all these years, but that's a different story. But this is no slight at the players at all. But she's being disingenuous when she says something clicked with the WNBA. She knows exactly what clicked with the WNBA. She knows that. I mean, there are many basketball purists, such as, Sports T and Mel from Man Down Sports and others who have been watching the WNBA prior to this. I'm not going to say I'm an aficionado, but years ago, I used to watch the WNBA. I mentioned Maya Moore. I used to watch her play with the Lynx. I watched her play at UConn. I remember, I'm old enough to remember when the WNBA first came into existence, and I used to watch the Houston Comets when, Tina Thompson, Cynthia Cooper, and Cheryl Swoops won the first 4 championships in WNBA history. I remember all that. I remember when Lisa Leslie won a chip. So, I'm familiar with the WNBA. Am I an aficionado? No, I'm not going to say it and tell you that. But the point is, I've watched it, and there are purists who watch damn near every game and really break it down. And it's not just about Caitlin Clark. However, most leagues, unfortunately, don't market to purists, right? So when she says something clicked this year with the WNBA, she's being disingenuous. She knows exactly what it is. And when she says it was the incoming rookie class, yes, it was. But we also know who were the main catalysts: Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And on a higher level of the two, if we're honest, Caitlin Clark. It is what it is. Now, that is not me saying that Caitlin Clark is the best player in the league or anything like that. That would be stupid. I'm not saying that. But if we have to be honest and say she was a major catalyst to what was going on in terms of the explosion in WNBA popularity. Let's keep going.
It's just not Caitlin Clark. It's Reese. We have so much talent out there that has been unrecognized.
And she's right. There is a tremendous amount of talent in the WNBA that has gone unrecognized. There's no question. Just like in the 70s, there was a tremendous amount of NBA talent that unfortunately went unrecognized until Magic and Bird came and pulled that league up out of its doldrums. I mean, catalyst, sometimes that's how it goes. All right, let's keep going.
And I don't think we can just pin it on one player. Why couldn't they have put the whole WNBA on that cover?
Seriously? Why couldn't they have put the whole WNBA on that cover? That is a stupid comment from someone I'm sure is quite educated. I'm sure she's extremely well educated. And she says, why couldn't they put the WNBA all on that cover? Really? So when Michael Jordan was on magazine covers, they were they were putting the whole NBA on magazine covers. When Larry Bird was on magazine covers, they were putting the whole NBA on magazine covers. When Magic Johnson was. Do you see where we're going with this? Like, let's stop it. We know what it is. If it's Caitlin Clark on the magazine cover, fine, because at the end of the day, people are going to come to watch Caitlin Clark. They're going to read that article. They're going to find out more about the WNBA. Maybe some of them will say, okay, I want to watch Caitlin Clark play. Maybe I'll buy a ticket. That's more money for the WNBA, right? Not just the Fever, not just Caitlin Clark, right? More money for everybody. So, like, let's stop being dumb here and let's just take advantage of what is coming. Let's go.
And said the WNBA is the league of the year because of all the talent that we have.
Now, that's fine. I would have had no objection to anyone saying WNBA is the league of the year. Why? Because we saw it. We saw the jump that it took. We had an opportunity for many, many people to see the level of play, right? I used to cover women's basketball when I was at the University of North Florida. I covered it for the student publication. And I talked to the coach a lot. I talked to some of the players a fair amount. And one thing I can say, I'm sure a lot of times we get people, especially males, unfortunately, talking about how poor women's basketball is. And it's not that. It's if you are watching it to see what you see in the men's game, yeah, it's going to look bad to you. But realistically, and I've talked about this ad nauseum, women's basketball is generally more technically sound because they can't rely on athleticism the same way. So they have to execute. They have to run their sets better. They have to defend, all those things, right? And realistically, the game, for whatever reason, is allowed to be more physical than the NBA game, which is also a kind of breath of fresh air. But yeah, I would have had no problem if they'd have said League of the Year, WNBA, but we're talking about Athlete of the Year. That is a singularity. And this person is going to make the nonsensical commentary of why couldn't they put the entire WNBA on the cover? Like, come on, man. That's just dumb.
Because when you just keep singling out one player, it creates hard feelings. And so now you're starting to hear stories of racism within the WNBA, and I don't want to hear that.
Okay, so it creates hard feelings. Guess what that means? That means people going to go out there and play harder. That means Caitlin Clark has to work harder to step her game up to become a better WNBA player, right? To continue to earn the attention that she's gotten, to be a better competitor, to continue to go at these women who have already staked their claim and made their place in this league and are some of the best women's players in the world, right? What could be wrong with that? What could be wrong with that? There's no problem with that. If there's hard feelings, there's hard feelings. Isaiah Thomas and Larry Bird at one point had hard feelings. Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan had hard feelings. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird had hard feelings, right? Hard feelings creates more competition. What is the issue with hard feelings? We don't want it kumbaya. We don't want that. We've seen it in the NBA and it freaking sucks. We don't want that. So there's nothing wrong with hard feelings. See, this was just so dumb. This was just so freaking dumb. And honestly, I hate it, man. I hate it. So I guess to close here on this particular topic, a couple of things could have happened. Caitlin Clark should have had I didn't hear the whole interview. So if she was asked the question to which she made commentary about her white privilege and what's going on with the black women in the league and what we should do for them. If she made that commentary unprompted, that wasn't smart. If she was asked a question, she should have been better prepared. You've got to play the middle. You've got to play the middle. And that is the smart business move. Just do that. Let people see you, how they're going to see you on either side of the aisle. You don't have to confirm or deny it. So those are my thoughts, man. Sheila Johnson, just a terrible, just an idiotic statement, if you ask me. It was just dumb. And I'm not calling her an idiot. I'm saying that statement was idiotic. And again, if it was League of the Year, cool. But it's Athlete of the Year. We're not putting the entire league on the cover of the magazine when one player won Athlete of the Year. Now, if you're going to argue that Athlete of the Year shouldn't have been her, that's fine. No problem with that. I'm just saying she won Athlete of the Year. This was my commentary on that. All right. I haven't opened up the phone lines in here yet, but I will do that and see if I get any calls in on this. I'm going to put the number in the phone line, 904-219-8264, 904-219-8264. I'll put it in the chat since we got some more people in here right now. And yeah, it's also scrolling on the bottom of the screen. You can give me a call if this is something you'd like to chime in on, because I definitely would like to hear a couple of thoughts on this. And kind of, I know there are some people who will disagree with what I have had to say here, and that's fine. Spice of life, right? But these are my thoughts on it, man. These are my thoughts. I'm a pretty simple, easygoing dude, and I think that there was just a much better way that this could have been handled on multiple fronts, whether it's from Mystics owner Sheila Johnson, or whether it's from Caitlin Clark, or whether it was from Asia Wilson, or maybe other players in the WNBA who have issues. Because again, Caitlin Clark unfortunately can't control what some of her fan base does. I suppose theoretically she could come out and tell them to stop it, but is that really her job? Like, to police what some of her fans do? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think it is. It's going to be what it's going to be, man. But just go out there, hoop, be the best basketball player you can be. Continue to try and build this league, which you play in, and in which you're something of a celebrity, and just, leave it there. Do that. But yeah, those are my thoughts. All right, cool. Well, I guess we're not gonna have any calls on that. I was hoping I'd get some. All right, so let's go to the final topic, and then we're gonna get out of here. Whew. All right, NBA ratings. NBA ratings. We've been hearing a lot about NBA ratings lately, about how poorly the NBA ratings are doing, how far they're down, and what does that mean for the league, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that I've said, and I've kind of talked about this briefly before, one of the things I've said is that when it comes to NBA ratings, one, I didn't think they cared particularly much, they being the NBA, the league office, because it's my contention. I don't have numbers on this, but it's my contention. Well, we know that the biggest consumer of the NBA product is China, right? Just from the math alone. China's got, about 1 billion people, a little over 1 billion. We have 340 million. So China's got like 1 billion people. They're the largest consumer of the NBA product. We know that. And so it's my contention that as long as China continues to consume the NBA product in a large amount, that the NBA will be okay as well. We know that Europe consumes the NBA product in a large amount, and now we are seeing the NBA continuing to mine Africa, both for engagement as well as players. And once Africa really becomes a major contributor, that's going to be another huge revenue source. And so I say that has, to me, something to do with why the NBA ratings are down. And I've had thoughts on this. I think a big part of it is the style of play. Just so many teams. I think the NBA average this year is about 35 and a half 3-point attempts per team per game, right? More than 70 per game between the two teams. For instance, the defending world champion Boston Celtics are averaging over 50 3-point attempts per game. I understand the analytics, I understand the math, but at the end of the day, that's not basketball. That's a 3-point shooting contest, and that's boring for a lot of people who love basketball to watch, because it just come down, shoot threes, driving kick, shoot threes, shoot threes, shoot threes, shoot threes. And so that's not exciting basketball. Like back in the day, we had different coaches with different offensive mentalities and different offensive schemes that they would run. So you would really get to see the chess match. Now, in most games, on most nights, it's a function simply of which team is going to get hot and which team is going to make the most threes. And that's the team that's going to win. And again, that's not basketball. And I think that hurts the game. I really do. Let's see. Woodage 84 says NBA ratings been down since 9/8, dropped really bad when they left NBA for ABC, ESPN. Now it's unwatchable due to all the threes. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough to watch NBA basketball. And honestly, I grew up loving the NBA and loving basketball on the whole. That was my number one sport, right? And football was second, and then college football was third. And now for me, unfortunately, it's flipped because of what I see as a much poorer quality of play, And now for me, it's NFL first and college football second, and then the NBA third, distant third. And I watch the NBA somewhat now. Like if there's football and basketball on at the same time, basketball always going to lose, right? But I watch the NBA more so now because I have to cover it, not because that love is there, right? And so people, tell me, younger people will tell me, oh, you just an old head hater. You hate it. You don't understand the game has changed, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you can say that. But have you ever stopped to look at it from the opposite perspective of it's not me hating, it's me. The fact that I'm having so much trouble adapting to this is because I truly love basketball, and I hate, not hate, but it really hurts me to see what it has become and how the quality of the game has devolved. Let's see. Also, how regional sports has become as a whole. If your team is doing bad, you probably aren't going to watch the sport in general. So yes and no, right? But this is not when we were little and we didn't have the opportunity to watch out of market teams, right? That availability is there, whether it's on cable or whether it's online or whether you get League Pass or whatever it may be. There's lots of options for watching out of region / out of market games. So it's not even like that, right? You don't have to just be forced to watch your local team and then you get the game of the week on Saturday and Sunday. It's not really like that anymore. So I don't even think regional is particularly a blockage to watching the game, even if your particular local team is bad. I don't even think that's an issue. But yeah, so my biggest problem is not that I am hating on the modern game. My biggest problem is that I love basketball so much that it hurts me to watch and see what it's become. We know that the rules changes have been put in place to inflate production. We know that guys get away with violations left and right. We know that. And again, we know that unfortunately defense has almost been completely legislated out. We know that most games end up as a 3-point shooting contest. It is hard to watch the NBA product that way. It just is. And that, again, that's not me hating. That's me telling the truth. So I was watching another content creator today. I was watching Dreamers Pro show. Shout out Charles, shout out Dreamers Pro. If you're not already subscribed, go over there and check that out. Of course, after we finish on our show here, but very good show. And he actually was giving some commentary on the latest NBA rating struggles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some of that and then I'll come back and we'll discuss it. And then later on, we have some longer commentary from longtime NBA writer and journalist Rick Bucher, who always is very objective and has some good stuff to say. But let's go to Charles Tabansi from Dreamers Pro Show first, and then we'll come back and discuss.
Okay, so let's get into some of these articles here. Let's start with the first one from Yahoo Sports. It says why the NBA's ratings are down big and why its new media partners should care. If the NBA were a player and its media partners were its coaches, the message to the league would be simple. You are underperforming after signing your big new contract. A month into the season, the NBA ratings are down 28% on ESPN through November 21st. Meanwhile, the ratings for its games on TNT are flat at 1.8 million viewers per game, while ESPN is slightly behind at 1.7 million viewers per game. This comes after every major studio fell over itself vying for its rights to air NBA games this year, resulting in a $76 billion total deal.
Let's think about that. $76 billion. So this is interesting because my big brother, he's a finance guy. He's also a former college basketball player and brief pro player, right? So we were talking about this for a couple of years before this actually came to fruition. And he kept telling me, Brucey, I'm telling you, this next deal is going to be huge. And I'm like, well, how is it going to be huge when we're seeing consistent slippage in the viewership? We're seeing consistent slippage in the interest from domestic fans, right? He's like, trust me, these networks, they need that content. They're going to do it. And I was like, man, I got to see it. I don't believe you. So we're arguing back and forth. And then as soon as it happened, I was like, oh my God, he was right. $76 billion, which was freaking crazy. A lot of dough. But yeah, shout out Mark. He told me what it was going to be, and he was right. And let's continue.
What's behind the league's popularity decline? While it's tough to blame any one factor, analysts say the NBA has too many regular season games and lacks continuity. With players changing teams more frequently and teams changing uniform designs more often, which has confused and turned off some fans.
So real quick, I've heard that a lot in terms of the season being too long, 82 games, and then we got the load management and all that, and a lot of times guys are sitting, et cetera, et cetera. So the suggestion was drop the games to about 65 per season. That'll increase the urgency. Maybe guys will play harder, et cetera, et cetera. But they're never going to do that. One, because the owners don't want to give up that money. And two, the players aren't going to agree to it because the players know that if they only play 65 games as opposed to 82, or have a 65-game season, I should say, as opposed to 82, then excuse me, then you're going to have a situation where the owners can say, well, you're not paying 82 games. We're going to pay you less. And the players don't want that, even though most of them don't play 82 games anymore anyway. So you got all that going on. So I'm like, really? This is not good.
The NBA's social justice focus, starting with Black Lives Matter, made the league a target for conservative pundits and turned off right-leaning viewers. And the league and its players have shown a penchant for not valuing the regular season enough. Coaches are still resting star players for long stretches to save them for the playoffs, which has further hurt fan engagement. The ratings drop has been conspicuous and potentially worrying, considering the NBA signed an 11-year, $76 billion TV deal this past summer. The new deal, which nearly triples the annual revenue the league brings in from its current contract. We will see the league remain on Disney's owned ABC and ESPN, plus bring games to Amazon Prime and NBC Universal starting next year. Wall Street analysts, however, said it's too early to panic. And then he went on to say a few things there. I want to quickly touch bases on this Front Office Sports article. It says NBA Cup TV ratings down 10% through group play. Continues on. The NBA's downward viewership trend to start the 2024-2025 season has seeped into the Emirates NBA Cup.
Real quick. So last year we saw a kind of spike in the viewership in regards to the NBA Cup. And personally, I think that was just kind of that initial curiosity in terms of, this is the first year. I don't really know how it works. Most fans saying, what's it about? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, the Lakers being one of the biggest, if not the biggest brand in the NBA, making a run and winning the first the first NBA Cup, that helped as well. But my thing is this, again, this is the NBA attempting to do something to garner some more interest. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to cure the symptoms, not the disease, right? And the real problem is you have to do something to fix you have to do something to fix the product, because the product is the real issue. So, throwing all these Band-Aids at it, you're trying to come up with different all-star game formats, and you coming up with the Emirates Cup and all that. That's cool, but it doesn't really mean anything if you can't make the product better. Let's see. What it says, season too long. It's been 82 games since 68. Nobody was complaining about it till the mid 2010s. Yeah, you're right. Which is crazy, right? Because even back then, guys were making less money and the league was way more physical, and it was a badge of honor to make it through 82 games. I always like to say, John Stockton played 80 plus games, 17 out of 19 NBA seasons. Come on, man. I want to say Michael Jordan played 82 games 9 times. I want to say that 9 or 10 times. So, I don't know what happened where it's no longer a badge of honor. I heard, what's his name? J.R. Smith. He was on a podcast. Can't remember which one it was, but he said something along the lines of playing 82 games now, that's barbarian stuff. I was like, what? All this money y'all getting and you talking about that's barbarian stuff? That is, I don't know. Anyway, let's continue on with the clip.
Viewership of the NBA's group play averaged 1.3 million viewers on ESPN and TNT, a 10% dip versus last year. The tournament's inaugural season, the network split 14 nationally televised games, with TNT averaging 1.5 million viewers for its 8 games and ESPN drawing 1.16 million viewers for its 6. There are several hypotheses regarding the NBA's early season viewership decline, including TNT analyst Shaquille O'Neal posting that the volume of three-pointers has made games repetitive. The NBA has also dealt with additional competition this season, a battle of powerhouses in the World Series between the Dodgers and the Yankees that drove a 7-year viewership high, the presidential election, and the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight, which set historic streaming numbers. And an article then goes on to say a few other things there.
So a lot of things they're saying basically got in the way of the NBA. That to me sounds like an excuse because as Woodage 84 noted, and we talked about earlier, the viewership for the NBA has been going down for years. Every year is not a presidential year. There's not always a Mike Tyson fight. There's not always these things that are so-called, catalyst for the NBA viewership dropping. Again, I think Shaq had it partially right. A big part of that is the style of play. just everything turning into a 3-point shooting contest. It can get boring. And then just, even when it's not that, the way these guys play and the lack of competitive fervor among them, it's difficult to watch, man. It really is. So, but again, I've also said this. It's my opinion that as long as the money keeps rolling in, I don't think the NBA cares that much. I really don't think they do. Now, they're trying to do a little something, make it look like they care, but I don't think they care. I think, how long is that new TV deal? 10, 11 years, I think, $76 billion. And so I don't think they're too concerned about it. Now, if it starts getting too bad, they have to catch it before it becomes irretrievable. And because why? They're going to want that next TV deal, right? Because that's really where the money comes from. It's the next TV deal. And so they have to at least keep it viable for that one. Let's see. Everybody copying the Spurs load management and the Warriors 3-point shooting. Yeah, you're right. So here's the deal. When it comes to the Spurs load management, I don't particularly blame them for that, even though they were kind of the impetus for it with Coach Pop. But the difference was that was an old team that he had, right? It wasn't young guys he's trying to load manage in terms of keeping them fresh for the playoffs. That was an old team that he had. That's why he did that. And he was like basically pushing back on the league, like, we can't be doing this. This is an old team, and I can't have these guys playing, 4 games, 5 nights, or however many it was. And so that to me was a slightly different situation. Now I get it. He did basically start the load management trend, but now you're seeing it even with young guys, right? For all of us who hooped, whether you're male, female, what have you, you know that when you're 19, 20, 21, 22, 25 years old, you don't have to stretch before, you don't have to stretch after. You can go out there, ball all day long, come home, take a shower, get something to eat, and then go do it again the next day. No problem. As you get older, that's where the difference takes place, right? Because, as you age, your body doesn't bounce back the same. But when you talk about young guys load managing, that's crazy to me, especially, again, in an era and a league that is not nearly as physical. So it's tedious, man. But yeah, I honestly don't believe that the NBA particularly cares that much. As for what is JD for, everybody copying the Warriors 3-point shooting, you're 100% right. Most sports are copycat leagues, but I can't for the life of me understand why you would be copying the Warriors 3-point shooting when you don't have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, right? I mean, you just don't. So yes, is the 3-pointer a weapon? Yes. Can it be a weapon? Yes, but you got to zig sometimes where other people are zagging. You got to be a strategist. And yes, 3 is more than 2, but it's not always beneficial to do it the way most of these programs are doing it now, in terms of just do the math and get up a certain number of 3s and you're more likely to win. I think that's freaking terrible, but that's me. Okay. So let's go now to longtime NBA journalist Rick Bucher. So he's got some long commentary here, but I'm going to break it up. I'm going to pop in from time to time, give my commentary on different parts of it, and then go back to it. So he recently did a podcast on his On the Ball with Rick Bucher podcast, discussing some things about the NBA and its issues with the ratings. So I thought this was interesting, since he's extremely plugged in, since he's been covering the league since the early 90s. So definitely wanted to hear that. Yeah, absolutely, Woodage. Absolutely. I'm with you. But apparently the math geeks say, no, that's not the case, right? I guess their mentality is, even at 35 or 40%, you have to make less 3s than you would 2s at 50%. But I don't know, man. I don't know. Again, I think it's just being lazy. One, it's some math people justifying their job, having the analytics department, right? You have to be able to justify that. And then 2, I think it's just being lazy, and it allows you to have players that are less skilled. I know they want to tell you that all the players today are more skilled, but if they can only do a few things, the main thing being shoot 3s, like, I don't really see them being more skilled. And you have coaches that are less imaginative. So there's that. But anyway, let's go ahead and hear what Rick Bucher's got to say. And after that, we'll come back and wrap up the show.
Let me give you the number one reason why ratings are down. Because ratings, TV ratings, aren't a priority for those running the NBA. The dirty little secret, as I was told by someone in the NBA front office when I went to visit them shortly after I began covering the league back in the early 90s as a Golden State Warriors beat writer, is that no one watches NBA games and it doesn't matter. Now, I know that that is a bit stressing for anybody like myself who loves watching games, and the idea that the league is not catering to us or doesn't care how we feel about the game, but that's the harsh reality of it. They know that for the most part, people like you and I who love the game, who have for the most part loved the NBA, are going to watch. We as a country also are so myopic when it comes to how things work. And people talking about sports can be particularly narrow-minded or blinded by their own preferences. My FS1 colleague, Nick Wright, suggested a bunch of different reasons. And as with a lot of things that Nick says, particularly about the NBA, he sounded really smart. But if you know the league and how it works, you know that the things that he was saying actually have no basis in fact. And among the many things he said is that the league has to manufacture Anthony Edwards and Jason Tatum into stars to succeed LeBron James and Steph Curry. They're still addicted to the drug of LeBron and Steph, and they need to wean themselves off of that, and they need to start promoting Anthony Edwards and Jason Tatum, or the next wave of stars. And the words he used were prime the audience, not manufacture. But it's basically the same thing. As if fans can't tell the real deal from something artificially inflated. As if they're going to look at Anthony Edwards and how he plays the game. And if he's just put on primetime TV, people are going to be enthralled with him and think, oh, he is the next Michael Jordan, as has the broadcast partners have tried their best to try to push. And how most basketball fans, getting an eyeful of the way Ant plays the game right now, have said, wait a minute, you can say that all you want. You can make the comparisons all you want. He doesn't hold a candle to Michael Jordan.
All right, so that was interesting, right? And now this is something actually myself and my friends have discussed. I always felt like the NBA did a poor job of getting the next generation ready to not necessarily have the torch passed, but the next generation ready for whoever would be the next big stars. Now, there was some bad luck there involved as well when Michael Jordan stepped away. So I think that Grant Hill was probably going to be that guy, but then obviously he wrecked his ankle and was never the same. Penny was probably going to be that guy as well, but he got hurt. So Grant Hill and Penny were probably the two guys ready to step in. So when Michael Jordan stepped away, there wasn't necessarily that guy there. But by then, at least Kobe was starting to fill that void. And so there's some truth there. But it was interesting how Rick Bucher says that. I think that there's a difference between what Rick Bucher's saying in terms of artificially inflating a player versus getting the fans ready to understand that there's going to be a next wave of superstars. But also, you got to have that next person that's going to reach out and take it. And I think Kobe was that guy that was willing to do it. And I don't know that we have that guy in the modern NBA, right? I know they wanted it to be Zion. He can't do it. I know they wanted to be Jokic. He doesn't have the personality or the athleticism, even though he's a really good player. I know they also wanted it to be Luka, not just domestically, but also, so you can have a white face really being a dominant player in the NBA, so long dominated by black players. And then also to continue to push out to that international market, right? But Luka doesn't defend. He doesn't come in good shape. He's constantly injured. He can't get an MVP, even though he puts up big numbers, right? So there's that. So he can't be the guy. So it's like, what are you going to do? So then, as Rick mentioned, they tried to pull the Anthony Edwards thing. And to me, I never saw any comparison between he and Kobe and MJ. I mentioned on an earlier what up, young disciple? Good to see you, brother. I mentioned in an earlier show that I felt like the comparison was more, what's his name? Isaiah Ryder and Anthony Edwards than Kobe and Mike and Anthony Edwards. Coincidentally, Isaiah Ryder also both were, Timberwolves. And so, I do have some concern there. I don't know what the league is going to do. It's already the ratings and the viewership is already continuously decreasing, at least domestically. So once LeBron, who is realistically one of the biggest draws, once he's done, Steph might only have like a couple years after that. I don't think they're going to go out at the exact same time. Then what's the league going to do? We got to figure it out. And I'm not sure that I don't know if they're trying to figure it out. We'll find out. Okay, let's go back to Rick Bucher and continue, and then I'll comment some more.
Right now. Same with Jason Tatum. We can get up in arms. We can say he proved everybody wrong. He won a championship, etc. Basketball fans know. We know what the real is. We know what the real deal is. We've seen it. We can feel it. We don't need numbers. We don't need the broadcast partners. We don't need anybody to tell us who can play and who can't. And
all right, so quickly, I'm a diehard Celtics fan. You on this show, you know that. But even with that said, Tatum he's not that guy, man. Number one, he doesn't have the personality. Number two, even though he's a champion and all that, and a multiple-time first-team All-NBA player, he hasn't been able to consistently be the guy to take over and step up and dominate when it's needed. We've seen it sometimes, but not consistently enough.
Can't help but wonder if Nick's artificial inflation of who and what LeBron has him believing that it's possible to artificially inflate someone into a superstar. But at least among real basketball fans who know the game, we know it's not possible. Nick, of course, also introduced, and that sounds like I'm beating up my friend. I'd like to consider Nick a friend. I think he's immensely successful and he's brilliant in what he does. It's just when it comes to basketball, he's selling a lot of stuff that simply rubs me the wrong way as someone who has basically spent his career covering the league. I know it's what. And a lot of what Nick sells is entertaining and interesting. It's just wrong. So why doesn't the NBA consider ratings and how many people are watching games a priority? One, because the ratings money is already in the bank. The amount paid by the broadcast partners is guaranteed the same way a player's salary is. If the ratings are great or if they're awful, it doesn't matter. It's the same with a player. If he becomes an all-star or he gets cut, he still gets paid basically the same. The usual all-star or their accolade contract bonus is at most a couple $100,000. And as has been demonstrated over the last 20 years, declining ratings don't impact the next round of TV contracts. They've consistently gone up by leaps and bounds. Why? Because it's not about the ratings.
So you hear that? It's not about the ratings. So Rick Bucher is telling you, and he said it at the beginning of this clip, unfortunately, the league doesn't particularly care that much about that. And especially now, as I mentioned earlier, they're getting more and more money coming into their coffers from international markets. Unfortunately, they're going to care less and less about it. And it's just, again, to me, it's just sad because I love the game of basketball so much, but to see the direction that the NBA is going is just, I don't know, it's tough.
It's about the value within the market. The ratings are down in part because there are more consumer choices. Now, NFL ratings have not slid, but they've been on a roller coaster, something I'll get to and offer an explanation for in a minute. The reason the NBA can draw fewer eyeballs but receive higher bids than ever for broadcast rights is the value its games have over the other options in the marketplace. The NBA may not draw as many people as it once did, but it draws more people than the other programming options the bidders might have. So they will pay more because they need the content and vehicle for selling advertising. Now, the other aspect of this is that the NBA with parity does not work. And that's what the rules have driven. The new rules by the NBA have driven parity. If they wanted to inspire or promote the development of super teams with superstars, they wouldn't have implemented all of the recent rules that they have. But they're not worried about parity. And therefore, that tells me that they're not worried about the ratings because they know the formula as well as I do.
So that's really interesting. The NBA is not worried about parity. And I guess that model just doesn't work for them because parity is the model that works and has made the NFL into the Goliath that it is. So I find it so interesting because to me, like, it gets boring other than like Michael Jordan, but it gets boring when you get the same team winning over and over and over again. But Mike was Mike. He just had so much flair and pizzazz and flash. And I think the fun of that was watching people try to climb the hill to take him down. But other than that, like the NBA, I guess, has always been a dynasty league for the most part, except for the 70s, which was, I believe, the least watched NBA decade. But the point is, parity seems to work everywhere else. Like we see it in college football this year with the 12-team playoff, and college football is like going through the roof in terms of excitement and engagement. We see it in the NFL year in and year out, the best worst to first and first to worst league in terms of division champions. And even though right now the Goliath is the Kansas City Chiefs looking to three-peat, there's still a lot of parity in terms of really good teams and teams that can compete against them. But yeah, that's my thought on that. I'm not sure why parity doesn't work in the NBA, but their model is their model, and they have to stick to what works for them theoretically.
So if the league continues to make more and more money, regardless of whether or not the ratings continue to rise, why should ratings be a priority? They're not. If there were, like I said, the league would not have implemented rules that are creating the most parity we've seen in decades, because parity is not good for the NBA ratings. Having a super team with a superstar or two that everybody is gunning to knock off, that is the formula that has consistently drawn the best ratings.
There you go. So Rick Bucher said exactly that, what I just said about when Michael Jordan was three-peating twice. So I like, what up, Opinion Stated? Good to see you, brother. Good to see you here, man. I like parity. I think it's good in every sport, but clearly it simply doesn't work for the NBA business model. So they're not going to embrace it. I get it. All right. That wraps up Rick Bucher's commentary on this particular topic. So at the end of the day, man, I'm realistically shocked to see that ratings seem to be, I'm not going to say irrelevant, but not nearly as important to the NBA league office as we would think as basketball fans. Clearly, their mind is elsewhere. They have a plan that works for them, and ratings just aren't that big a deal. And according to Rick Bucher, never have been. And he's covered the league for more than 30 years. So I think it's crazy. I think we will, if that's the case, I mean, we're just going to continue to see the product decrease and devolve, not evolve, but devolve. We'll see the product continue to get worse, and we'll continue to be lied to by the mainstream sports media. And they will continue to poison younger fans and have them tell us, hey, this is the best era ever. And each successive generation is the best era ever. And the players that played before were plumbers and firemen. Imagine there's going to come a time, maybe 10 years from now, where people are going to talk about LeBron's era and say that it was plumbers, right? Imagine how disrespectful that is. So I guess it just happens with each successive era, man. But yeah, this NBA ratings thing, I just thought was really interesting to kind of dig into that some more. And then, of course, Rick Bucher gave some in-depth thoughts on that. His show where he talked about that, probably about 35 minutes long. So I cut some of that interview. But if you check the On the Ball with Rick Bucher podcast, you will definitely hear the whole thing. And he's got a lot to say, some really good commentary on it. Black Dynamite says, Adam Silver knows what the problem is. He just don't care. I don't know if he just doesn't care or if he just can't fix it, right? I really don't know. Because at the end of the day, being the commissioner, he doesn't necessarily even work for the league. He works for the owners. So whatever the owners vote for and whatever they want, he's got to back that up. So if the owners are happy with what's going on because they're making as much money as they're making, I think that that's what he has to go with. Young Disciple, you're absolutely right, brother. That was something I mentioned earlier when I was talking about, I think it was a little bit before you got in, where I was saying like China is the largest consumer of the NBA product. So you've got China, and then of course you've got Europe doing their thing, and now you have the NBA consistently mining Africa both for engagement, monetary gain, and players. So once they really get into Africa, then you're going to see it like it's going to explode even more in terms of how much money it's making from the global markets. So you're absolutely right, Young Disciple, 100%, man. And it's sad, though, because, U.S. ratings don't matter, but this is our game, and it's going to end up hurting the game because I think you're going to maybe see less and less guys over here that are going to be as invested in playing the game and becoming stars. That could just be me. All right. MB says in the 90s, NBA averaged 34.7% from 3-point%. Now it's 36.1%. Not even a full 2% improvement. That's not a significant difference. Players today aren't better shooters. They just shoot more. MB, you're 100% right. I've talked about this on other episodes, but we can't we can't get away from the narrative. They have to push that narrative because they know today's players aren't actually superior, but they have to push the narrative. And most people aren't going to go and do the research like you just did. I've done it. Now you've done it. Most people aren't going to do that because most people just don't. But I feel you, bro. I feel you. Cooper Flagg, yeah, they are very much hoping that he can possibly be, I guess, the next, quote unquote Larry Bird, although there'll never be another Larry Bird. But they want him to be the next homegrown white American NBA superstar. That's what they want. Let's see. Young Disciple says today's players are definitely better shooters, just not as fundamentally sound. Definitely not as fundamentally sound. And realistically, I don't know that I agree that they're better shooters. Let me go ahead and take this call from Opinion Stated. Then we're going to go. Opinion Stated, what's good, brother? What's good?
Bruce, what's good, brother? Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, brother. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, not a whole lot. I want to, first of all, man, before I do anything, man, say, you know what I mean? You're doing a great job.
I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, I want to shout out Black Dynamite. Young Disciple, what's good, bro? I appreciate your, you know what I mean, your open discourse everywhere we can find you.
Fact.
Where you come over and be a thorn in my side to a degree. MB was good. Sid Bubba, Woodage, everybody who's in the chat. Engaging this morning for me, afternoon maybe where you guys are. But I want to address really quick, bro, what the topic that you're talking about with the ratings.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things that are being stated, because I feel like everybody's making valid points. You know what I mean? You and everybody else in the chat,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? We're cohesively speaking about what the issue is, the prevailing issue, and the issues, you know what I mean, around them. So it starts to get fragmented after a while. And the fragments, none of them are off point. All of them are on point. But when you snowball them all together, we get a bigger picture of kind of like what's happening and then what happens as a result. So first I want to talk about I want to bring up the ratings and how Adam Silver and the league, knows what the issue is and they don't care to fix it. To Rick Bucher's point, you know what I mean? Like ratings aren't really that big of a deal. And, that's a business thing, you know what I mean? So for instance, in my business, I run a weekly, show that I've been doing out here in Phoenix for nearly 10 years. I have a threshold, you know what I mean? There's a certain threshold that I know we have to meet in order for it to make financial sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether I have 500 people show up, 500 people is a great night, 400 is a great night, 300 is a great night. But if I can just hit a mark of about 150 to 200, then we're doing good. I can pay expenses and still walk away with a profit. And that's the way that the NBA has always looked at viewership. Before, back in the 90s era, so this is kind of bleeding into the purist point that was made, where Silver wants to get rid of the purists. They don't want to get rid of the purists. The purists are never going to go anywhere. The casual fan has always existed in the NBA landscape. You know what I mean? And the casual fan, for it to make sense for, those who maybe, have a little age and wisdom on them, like, the two of us in terms of, our age. And that's not to age us out or to point at anybody else being young. So I don't want people to be like, oh, it's almost super young. But I'm saying, our generation we were basketball card collectors. This is prior to social media. This is prior to, you know what I mean? Like any place where you could get a centralized focus being on stats and statistics. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we had inside stuff and all those places.
That's right.
SportsCenter was literally just a highlight reel. It was just about tuning in for the top 10. I mean, the way that they gave recaps on the game even wasn't in depth. They gave us 20 seconds of highlights and just tell us who won at the end and show us a bleep of the box score.
Mm-hmm.
So the casual fan has always been the driving force for the league. The purists are the purists. We're just going to argue with the casual fan to kind of put them in their place or to add some perspective, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they understand that the ratings are not really that big of a deal. They just have to meet a certain threshold. The thing that truly drives and has driven revenue has been ticket sales from the outset.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So once they were able to, if the style of play begins to affect how many people show up in the league, show up to the games, et cetera, then it will become more of a centralized focus to say, whoa. You know what I mean? Our bottom line is being affected, right? From that standpoint. But viewers are always going to view. So as long as people view, even and they can meet that threshold. That's how they I imagine, because I wasn't in any of these meetings, but that's how they were able to generate the $76 billion in TV deals this past summer. It's a projection of saying, hey, you guys don't worry about having 100% of viewership. Like, people just don't view their attention is fragmented and all over the place.
That's true.
So as long as you can pull in this amount of viewers, it's not going to look like last year or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, because people's, they had a more centralized focus because they didn't have many options in terms of the things that were pulling, attention. So this is why Adam Silver can make it a point to say, oh, well, we're up against the election and we're up against this and we're up against that, because he understands that those little events, right, massive on their own scales respectively, but those little events in the purview of people are enough to shake up and to detract from the actual little minimal bottom line for viewership for them. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, once that goes away, then we'll get back to the threshold. Not that we'll get back to, 5 million viewing a game tonight or 7 million viewing a game, or these numbers eclipsing college sports. They understand they're functioning from a baseline. So when I hear them speak, I'm hearing them speak minimal baseline as a business person. I'm like, okay, I understand what they mean. So that's how they're able to generate that kind of revenue. And now, as somebody else in the chat mentioned, the game is globalized now. So the U.S. ratings will never be. And you're lamenting the fact that, but it's an American game. That's how we think. It's our game. Like, it's got to be. If we're not watching it, then the product's not good. It's like, no.
Well, I'm not saying
we can point to.
Yeah, I wasn't saying necessarily if we're not watching it, the product's not good, but there should be some care about the domestic market. And the last thing I'll say before I let you go is just that I think it's with the TV deals, and this is something my brother, he's a finance guy, and we argued about it. And what he told me was it's almost as much as like if it's Bruce Hope Network versus Q Network, I'm willing to pay so that Q's network doesn't get it, right? So that's a big part of it, right? Just having that content versus you having that content. So yeah, it's not just, as long as we get a certain threshold, and that threshold is important, I agree, but it's also paying so someone else doesn't have it and I don't.
Well, yeah, because again, to take it back to the threshold thing. So with competition is what you're speaking of, competition in the marketplace, meaning between the platforms that are able to broadcast now, meaning these are just apps, bro. So Amazon's about shipping and delivering stuff, and all of a sudden they jump into the game and be like, oh, let's start to get some in, because we have, our Amazon app now where people can view movies and get music and all that stuff. And they became a player getting the TV shows, and it's a gradual process where eventually, even like Netflix that just broadcast the boxing match, you go from, there's an evolution for all these platforms, and they understand they're projecting, future revenue down the line, understanding that, to somebody's point in the chat right now, that says, NBC knew how to market. Well, NBC was the only player. So their marketing was the only marketing. And then, so when you have an ESPN that comes behind an NBC for decades, or for a decade, where viewership was at its height because of that super team element or superstar element rather of the Bulls, and that domination, that not super team, but that dynasty element, then what happens is, and ESPN coming in, we got used to the product of NBC and how professional it was delivered, and Marv Albert's voice, and it just became comfortable for us. You know what I mean? It became the way that basketball was delivered and analyzed. And when that change is never good in the sense of how players or what fans have normalized, rather. You know what I mean? So when that happens, it's like, oh man, this is different. I don't like it. And we have all the reason in the world not to like the product that ESPN had put together. So I'm not justifying their product, but I'm saying that it stands to reason why we're saying take it back to NBC. I can I'm going to forecast for everybody who's listening, you included, Bruce. You know I love you. I'm going to forecast for everybody what's about to happen with NBC. You're going to be disappointed. If you were an NBC fan of the NBA on NBC years ago, you're going to be disappointed with the product that NBC lays out, because it's not nostalgically, it's just not going to be the same.
Right.
We're hoping for that.
Right.
That it gave us.
Everybody can use that now. I saw that on Fox Sports. I was like, do they own that now? I hope NBC buys it back from them and locks it down, because
it's licensed. You know, they're licensing it because they began to license it strategically and very smart because they knew that they were going to become a player for the NBA back. So they wanted to get people back used to the sound. I want you to hear it again and relate it to where they're smart, bro. Come on, it's all business. And so we understand that the NBA is an entertainment product, and that's what you know. My friend circle, they were quick to remind me a couple years ago when I was lamenting all these points about the NBA and how it's dying, and but they were like, bro, pause. Calm down, take a deep breath. Your precious NBA is not going anywhere. It's an entertainment product, and you're just looking at it as a purist. You know what I mean? To the point made in the chat, and you're wanting the old days back. You want that old thing back, that old feeling.
Yes, sir.
But the reality is, it's an entertainment product, bro. So they're always their chief mission, key to Adam Silver's position on the ratings, and to Rick Bucher's point, is that they're producing an entertainment product. They only care about producing an entertainment product. If people are entertained, whether we are talking about it positively or negatively, somebody's being entertained by even us shining a light on the things that are wrong. It's still entertainment. So they know that they produce a product that people will speak about positively or negatively. Helps us to create content for social media. Helps us to also keep the NBA's name out there and viable and keep them trending because the direction has completely changed. It's not just newspapers and radio. Sports talk shows these days. Now it's us, bro. It's us driving the independent media space and us saying things and us talking. These conversations have been happening since the dawn of the NBA. They just didn't happen in the public purview. They happen at the barbershops. They, on such a massive scale. I'm saying, you know what I mean? They happen when we got together with our family members and with our friends. But now, man, we're able to captivate the attention of hundreds of thousands of people, sharing a like perspective that, for better or worse, still helps to promote the NBA's entertainment product.
There you go. There you go. Great commentary, opinion stated. Good stuff, man. You got anything else?
No, that's it, brother. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in, man. Like I said, I appreciate the topic and the comment.
No doubt, man.
That link as well for the full interview. I haven't made it through the full interview yet.
Okay.
The Rick Bucher interview I'm speaking of, but yeah. He has some profound wisdom to share there. You know what I mean? Like I said, it ties what nobody in the chat is saying anything wrong. You know, everybody's position is their position, and they all link. You know what I mean? So I like to tell people sometimes it sounds like we're on opposing sides. It's like what the problem is when we can all. And it's not about being right or wrong. It's like, bro, that's a good perspective that you're sharing there. And it's actually linked to what I'm saying. So it's like we're saying the same thing, but we're just saying it different.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
no doubt.
Yeah. Shout. That's why I wanted to start out by shouting out everybody's feedback in the chat, because I'm like, man, this is some really cool engagement to see because we're all stating what the issues are and the reasons for the issues or the symptom of what has happened because of A, B, C, or D. You can put these positions that everybody's brought up in varying orders, and it won't change the reality. They're all on point. You know what I mean? They're all on point, bro. So yeah, I just want to say, man, shout out to y'all. Keep doing your thing, bro.
I appreciate it, brother. Thanks so much for the call, man.
Absolutely.
All right, team. Well, I'm gonna drop it right there. Opinion stated always with the good calls, man. He and I have some really good discourse on the NBA and stuff like that. So great call from him. And I'm gonna leave it right there, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in with me today. Just wanted to again do what I do and drop my thoughts and kind of share where I am on certain topics. And hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you haven't already, you're new here, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you're so inclined, man, make sure you become a member of the channel as well. Once we see that start picking up, you'll start getting that members only content. I'm going to work on that for you. But yeah, make sure you do that and make sure you share. The share button's powerful. Let's keep this thing growing, man. I appreciate y'all. I'll see you next time. Might do something later tonight. And then, of course, we got the Wednesday night show tomorrow with the pick'em and everything else. All right. So y'all have a good one. We out. Peace.